So let's get to the portal. And I'm just going to work it down on names that maybe I'd recognize or fans might recognize. And then we'll kind of, Ryan, we'll just kind of give the ones that maybe our top 5 ones that could impact, no disrespect to anyone else out there. Nate Van Zelst, the kicker, a junior, is kicked into the portal. This is we're not pulsed on this, right?
No, he wasn't even the starting kicker. Nathaniel Vacco still is one of the portal entrants who they had last offseason, was okay this year, probably wasn't going to get replaced anytime soon, and Van Zelst wasn't a major contributor so far.
And I'm just going to apologize ahead of time for any of the Hawaiian names that I butcher.
I can help you out a little bit.
All right, Anelu
Lafa'ele.
Okay. I would have gone Lafale, so not that far off, but all right. So
it's somewhere in between.
Freshman running back, he's the second player second player out of the 2024 class to decommit, I believe.
Yes, and that is, I will say, if we're talking about ranking most impactful losses, there's a good chance he could be up there because he's seen as having a lot of potential. When they landed him last year, it was a big deal. If you remember him, he's the guy when he committed, he jumped in the water behind him.
Yeah.
Like he committed on the beach in Hawaii.
Yeah, yep.
He's seen as a very explosive, very good stand-up linebacker that they could have groomed over the next couple years. It'd be interesting.
Go ahead. The one thing I see for him that maybe didn't fit, and again, depending on what they do on the linebacker, listed as an outside linebacker, 6'2", 237. It's a little more stout than I think they want for these outside linebackers. Again, I'm not saying, I wish him well, and I hope he's a good player. But let's go through them all, and then we'll rank top 5.
Okay.
Will Pauling, obviously wide receiver. That one's going to be on the list for sure. C.J. Williams, a wide receiver that I think we can comp to one of the portal players coming in. We'll get to him a little bit later, but C.J. Williams came here with some fanfare from USC and didn't live up to the hype here, but we do wish him well. Max Laffey, with all due respect, I don't know who that is. So cornerback, yes, but he does not register to me as someone who made plays.
He was like a not every down player, but he rotated in as a third, maybe fourth defensive back sometimes.
Yeah. Braden Locke. Honestly, I wouldn't have been mad if he stayed. It wasn't going to be good for anyone because he was going to slide down the depth chart and he just had too much baggage here. It's obviously not to the Graham Mertz level, but it just reminded me of that. Of like, hey, man, just go move on and hopefully you do well.
Yeah, it was the most non-surprising portal entrant so far.
Latu, how do you say his first name?
Kamoy.
All righty. Kamoy Latu. I didn't know if that was an L or an I was mainly my main question with this name there. Kamoy Latu. I thought this was going to be more impactful, but he didn't do much this year. In fact, I think he was able to redshirt.
He was injured a lot this year was the problem because this would have been his final year of eligibility, but I think he might have played just one game, if that, honestly. So, yeah, he had been an impact player over the previous few years.
Three games.
Oh, 3 games, so that's just what the cutoff mark for redshirt, yeah. So, that's a tough one because it's a veteran, but, given what else they've lost in the secondary, we'll get to it a little bit later in the list.
Yeah, Riley Nowakowski, is a solid tight end. And he's committed to Indiana, so we'll see him. Then you have Tyler Van Dyke. That's more of what could have been. I have no problem with him leaving. I don't think the timeline worked out for him. That from when he got hurt to when they could count on him being back to participate, we're probably looking at fall practices. And then that's just too deep. They needed to bring in some. We'll talk about the quarterbacks they bring in. James Derland, a 4-star prospect from Arizona. I don't know who he is. I know the line is deep, and even with losing these players, so I don't think this is good. I hope he might be very good. I don't think this is going to crush anything for the next year or two for Wisconsin. They have time to recruit over this.
It's probably the one position they can absorb a loss at the most.
Yeah. Hank Weber, again, he committed to Samford. He was the first member of the 2024 class to announce his transfer. 6'3" defensive lineman, 263 pounds. It could be him not wanting to be here for time purposes. Because here's the other balance here, Ryan. We have to figure out how much is this as the team telling them, like, hey, like what we're doing going forward, you might not fit. Because when we talk about the D lineman coming in, there's a specific body style for most of them, especially on the interior, that they've been looking at. James Thompson Jr., defensive end. Basically, he missed all of last year, which I think hurt the Badgers. I would have loved to have him back. I think he would have been a guy that fit the scheme. I don't think they're making major changes, but I just think that the bodies and how they might use some of them might be used a little different. So it is a bummer that he is not staying at Wisconsin. Maybe they can turn that around. Manny Mullins, offensive lineman, is the younger brother of defensive lineman Isaiah Mullins. He was a walk-on from Lake Erie College and just didn't get a lot of time on offensive line. So Nate White, I remember him coming in as a running back. It didn't work out at running back. They tried him at wide receiver, running back. I'm not sure where he'll land, but he was a really talented high school running back in Wisconsin.
Yeah, he's got a lot of speed, a lot of natural talent for sure. It'll be interesting to see what position he plays going forward.
Yeah. What is his height there? 5'11", I guess. Is there slot receiver running back?
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah. Braden Moore, he has a former 3-star prospect, a safety. He came over from Cincinnati with Luke Fickell. It just didn't work out for him here. Jace Arnold, a freshman, smaller player, but one of multiple players. This is going to be a depth play. He has 3 years eligibility remaining as he steps away. Kurt Neal, who did play 29 games in his career at Wisconsin, despite just being a sophomore. So that one, I think, will hurt for depth. They're adding players in, but you hate to see a guy who's played that many snaps not feel like they want to stay here. Justin Taylor, he is committed to Wyoming, so another former 3-star prospect at safety who is on his way out. Jonas Duclona, he went to South Florida. Jonas was, again, another player that we don't know what they would have been, but they're depth, and we just don't know what they could have been at Wisconsin. Amari Snowden, I'll put that into that former 4-star prospect. A lot of excitement around him. I don't think some of his comments implied he didn't handle not playing maybe very well. Maybe he just wants to play, and he's been passed. I think he specifically mentioned like Fort Queen passed him, and then he just moved on the depth chart. So I think this is just one of those where the fit isn't here, and now he's going to go to Toledo. I'm not saying he's not a good player, and the Badgers won't miss him, but they're going to miss. If anything, a lot of these players, what they're going to miss is their projection of what they could be.
For sure.
Like they're not. You don't look at this and go, "Oh, they got worse." We don't know. Not for next year.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what we're going to grade this is on, is next year impact.
Yeah.
I think that's the way we have to look at it.
So Snowden and I believe Duclona were 2 guys who left because they'd somewhat been passed up by, like you mentioned, Fort Greene was seeing most of this every down snaps.
Yeah.
And then Xavier Lucas.
Yes.
Freshman corner, who I do have to say, Jim, some breaking news here.
Yeah.
In the last 5 minutes, Xavier Lucas entered the portal.
That's not good.
Just as the show is going on right now. So he is now this 8th member of the secondary to enter the portal this offseason.
I'm going to go ahead and put that one high on the list.
That's very high.
Yeah. And then Leon Lowry, linebacker to Illinois. I'm not saying that wouldn't be high on the list. Oh, and then Cole LaCrue was the first one out. So, off the breaking news that we just got, I will say, in no particular order, let's just do the 5. Will Pauling, Xavier Lucas, who has now just entered the portal. Maybe they crawl him back. Maybe they bring him back.
Worked with Trechka Kahuna. Could work with him as well.
Yes.
We'll see.
I wouldn't mind if they died with James Thompson, but I don't.
James Thompson would be great too, honestly, given his veteran presence and the need on defensive line. Yeah.
So Leon Lowry, I'll put him on the list, and I'm looking mostly for next year's impact. So we got Will Pauling, Xavier Lucas, and then who did I just say? Leon Lowry.
Leon Lowry, linebacker.
Those are my top 3 impact for next year. I'll put James Thompson on there as well, because I believe he would have been an impactful player for next year. And I don't mean to get after any of the quarterbacks. I just don't. They were kind of recruited over anyways. Who's the 5th you put on there as far as?
I would say Anelu Lafele.
Okay.
I just said before Xavier Lucas entered the portal within 5 minutes ago, I would say he would have been the most impactful loss because of the projection of what he was expected to be with the Badgers. So especially as an edge rusher, a position of value, and now Xavier Lucas is the exact same situation, except we actually saw him really impact a couple games last year. He was pretty good in that Oregon game. If you remember, he had the sack on Dylan Gabriel. That's a big one.
It is.
I'd say him or Pauling have to be the most impactful.
It's surprising that disappointing the Badgers let him get out, because I would imagine he would have been their starting corner. And was he a 4-star guy?
I believe coming out of high school, he was a 3-star. And I remember his recruitment was a little interesting because the Badgers were not his first choice initially. Okay. He was really interested in going to Florida State, from what I could tell and from what I read. But I think they recruited over him at Florida State.
Okay.
And thus he ended up with the Badgers as his second choice.
So I wonder where, if he ends up at Florida State, then sometimes you have to say,
surprising.
You have to say, you know what? That's just the business.
Yeah, he's a South Florida guy too, so that made a lot of sense. It was like the hometown team.
Maybe Owls. No, it's a downgrade. I mean, he would be I would imagine, a star in the defense for the Owls.
He'd be a star. He's probably going to be a star in most places he goes. He was very good as a true freshman.
I did really like what he did for the Badgers. All right, so now those are our top 5 players who are on their way out. Make sure that in this nasty weather, that if you're in the market for a new or new to you Chevy Silverado, Colorado, check out my friends at Simden Chevy in Mount Horeb. You're only minutes away from a better buying experience at Simden Chevy in Mount Horeb. All right, let's get to the transfer portal commits coming in. And the way this thing goes, if you're just tuning in, Xavier Lucas on his way out, and maybe someone will be on their way in while we talk during this. And shout out to BadgerBlitz.com for their, I'm using their site for most of this information here. All right, I think these are mostly put up in order of when they came in, but some of these players, I'm trying to temper expectations on some, and I'm trying to, and I'm going to be excited about others. Mason Reiger, a 6'4", 250-pound lineman. He's from the state of Illinois, and he is a player that I think he's got. I should say, we'll get to what the impact could be, but he joins a position of need at D-line, and he has a little bit of pedigree as far as having played some ball at a higher level, and I like what he could be for the Badgers this one season.
I will say there were some really good highlight clips on Twitter of him from the 2023 season, one where he's bowling over.
Yeah, he missed all of last season with an injury.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
And he was bowling over Joe Alt when he was in the tackle at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Joe Alt, the 6th overall pick in last year's draft.
Yeah.
He could be one of the, I mean, he was the first commitment. He might end up being the most impactful, like you said. That's a non-quarterback, I'll say.
Yes, and I'm sorry, where did he come in from?
He came from Louisville.
Louisville, okay. And so 6'4", 250, and we had this discussion with our co-host Matt Hamilton and Jim Matt-Mala, and he was kind of saying, like, Portal, like, when they come from smaller schools, because we have some of the other players, I will just say, and it is the aberration, the exception that proves the rule, but let's not write anyone off. J.J. Watt came from a smaller school.
Yeah.
And so, Western Michigan. So, when we look at all this, and it kind of ties here to Tanner Koziol. So, the tight end, I believe from Ball State, and he's their leading receiver by a massive margin. He has been productive basically every year he's played college football, and one of the best tight ends in, I think, college football last year. I think the number one tight end in the portal. And
he was, I believe, based on which service you use, ESPN had him as the 3rd ranked tight end in the portal, and I believe the 48th overall player in the portal.
Okay.
So he could very well be impactful. I think ESPN's Matt Miller, draft expert, Field Yates, they said get him on your 2026 draft watch list, and that he's an absolute baller. And
then you pair that with Ari Temkin, who joined the show last week, and he talked about how this offense is going to use the tight end a lot. And now you have a guy who can be a feature tight end. And here's the part that I probably overlooked. 6'7", 237 pounds. The man is a beast.
Yes.
And so he should be a problem for a lot of opposing teams. The next one here is Parker Peterson, I believe, from Tulane. And according to what I'm reading here, COVID may have kind of jammed up his recruiting and how he ended up at Tulane. He finally got a chance to play last year. He played really well. He's got 1 year eligibility left, so he wants to play in a Power 5 conference. 6'4", 300 pounds. I like it. And he had 2.5 tackles for loss, fumble recovery. It is a guy that I think the Badgers are going to try to rotate through linemen, but he is a big body guy that, and I've said this before, that I think maybe in recruiting, Wisconsin got caught up in trying to beat the Oregon and Washington and some of the fast schools and forgot, hey, we got to beat Nebraska, Iowa, and we have to have people who are not physically worn out at the end of the year. And sometimes, look, the bigger you are, the less you wear out, and the more bodies you have in that position, the less you wear out as well. Speaking of bigger bodies, this kind of falls more of that long and lean. Corey Walker, he used to play tight end, converted to defensive line. He's a player from Western Michigan. He's to spark the conversation with Matt Hamilton about this, but he had 5.5 sacks last year, and he has 1 year of eligibility left. 6'5", 270 pounds, fits that sort of big, lanky edge that a lot of teams want, but I think the Badgers, this is a smart way to try to find some of these players. So I'm not saying I'm trying to temper expectations. I get caught up anymore in the overall excitement and kind of more of like, are you attacking a position of need?
Yeah, it's all we really can do at the end of the day.
We'll get to our top 5, but I'll tell you right now, it's going to be based mainly on what production you've had so far. Danny O'Neal, quarterback, coming in. He'll have 3 years of eligibility left, was at San Diego State. He's from Indiana. What I had read is that he wanted to get closer to home, that his parents getting out to San Diego State to go visit him was getting expensive. And again, what he told the coaching staff, or what told the media, was that NIL was not a major part of it. It was, I'm out in San Diego State. If I have the opportunity to get closer to home so my family can see me play easier, that was high on his list. But NIL probably ties into it because it's literally costs his family to fly, or his family money to go fly out there. Next one you have here is Charles Perkins, defensive tackle, 6'3", 300 pounds. He's from UT Martin, so it's a step up for him. But I like the body size and I like what they're trying to do. And this is not a 1 year player. And 2.5 sacks last year at UT Martin. Billy Edwards Jr., if you watch Big Ten football, you know who that is. He's from Maryland. He ranked 3rd in passing yards per game and 2nd in overall completions for the season. Came just short of 3,000 yards passing. He would have gotten there, but I think he missed the last game or two with injury. And had 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and 150 yards on the ground. So I guess 3,000 total yards. And 65% completion percentage is respectable. I'd say he's the leader in the clubhouse to be the starting quarterback for the Badgers next year. This one is going to be, obviously, we don't know what he's going to to project to, but 6'1", 200 pounds, Matthew Traynor, a safety coming in from Richmond. Obviously, that's going to be a big jump in competition, but he was very productive. So something to keep an eye on. It's a position of need.
Yeah, and I mean that's what the Badgers, if they're going to really capitalize on the portal, that's what they got to do. Not the money ball situation, but finding guys who are not going to be high price ticket items, because otherwise you're going to overspend yourself in the portal.
Yes, Eli Stein from Cambridge.
Talk about finding a gem in the rough.
He's a long snapper, but I'm happy a Cambridge kid coming back to Madison for his last 2 years. He was at Arkansas. This one is a lottery ticket, I would call. Jaden Ballard, 6'2", 295 pounds, reminds me a lot of C.J. Williams. Just the idea of a highly recruited player who did not do well at his first school, a Power 5 school, and they're hoping to change the scenery, can make a difference for them. Jaden Ballard has the potential to be a big-time impactful player for the Badgers. I don't know if he will, but he has the potential to. Then you have Antarion Turner, a 6'2", 230-pound linebacker. I believe they added today because I feel like I looked at earlier this morning that he was not on the list.
It was, I believe, 8 p.m. last night.
8 p.m. last night. So maybe I looked last night because I feel like he was not on the list.
Those lists, I mean, honestly, if you were updating that list in the moment every day, you'd have to be doing it from like 6 a.m. till like 10 p.m. It would be a lot to ask out of Badger Blitz.
Yeah, and I'm like, they are doing a great job, so we appreciate that. He had offers from Western Michigan, UConn, Kansas, Western Kentucky, and Toledo. There are some other names that the Badgers are in on, and there was one, I'm trying to find it, and look, maybe this will work in their favor because he is he's coached by a former Badger. Who's the kid? Is it Idaho? Yeah, Mark Hamper. 6'2", freshman wide receiver from Idaho, was very productive.
Very.
Has the size you're looking for. And refresh me, who is the head coach at Idaho?
Jason Eck was. He is now the head coach in New Mexico.
Okay, sorry, Jason Eck was. And so, but if he has a relationship with him, if this kid doesn't go to New Mexico, Jason maybe puts a good word in for...
Well, and I believe Jason is good friends with Casey Ryback, who is it Ryback or Rayback?
I don't know. I go Ryback, but that's also because there's a movie...
Casey Ryback, the Steven Seagal movie.
Yes,
I'm very familiar.
Yes.
But yes, I believe he and Jason Eck are also close friends too. They play together. So those are the sorts of connections you need to rely on too. And like we said, with Traynor or some of these other guys coming from the MAC, or if it's a Mountain West school, it could very well be guys who were under recruited coming out, have been, like you said, really productive and impact players right away. I mean, that's how you have to look for in the portal, right? Because you're not grooming many guys from after they get through in the portal, because that's not what they're in the portal for.
And I mean, Daniel O'Neill, Sean Lewis, former Badgers tight end, is the head coach of San Diego State.
There you go.
Again, if you're going to go somewhere, maybe he said, "Hey, Madison is," gave the thumbs up to Madison.
Who knows?
Even if you don't know the staff, you know the area, and no matter what staff is here, the college, the campus, the fan support, and the actual city are elite. And so, and I'm not saying Luke Fickell and that staff won't get there, but Lewis and Heck might not have any true connects outside of Rybach, but they also just know what Wisconsin football is. So on this list, I will say I might not be able to do 5 here, but Billy Edwards Jr. to me is someone I definitely have expectations for to be a good player for the Badgers. If he repeats maybe a little bit more efficient what he was last year, Badgers doubled their quarterback production. I'm making that up, but it just feels like they would. And then another one, obviously, what's the tight end's name? Tanner
Koziol.
Tanner Koziol. He's clearly got it behind him. Like, that's one you should be excited about. He's been productive, and he is someone that has been productive at a good level. I like the jump up for him. Who else? Is there anyone else on this list that you're super like? I will say these are more long shots after those two. Matthew Traynor is someone that I think could come in at a position of need and have an impact very quickly. I think we can count on Eli Stein. Obviously, he's going to play, so we can put Eli Stein on there. He's going to get snaps. And then if I'm going to do a projection, I guess I go Mason Reiger.
Yeah, I think I'd kind of go the same way. I might put Reiger a little higher just because, once again, talking about looking for guys with proven production in college. He was pretty proven his first 2 seasons at Louisville.
Yep.
It's just he missed that last year with injury. So if he comes back strong, like, he could be a guy who might be their best defensive lineman very quickly. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising. And then I think this is very much a cheat, but I would just pick like the 3 D tackles they took, like, as a whole. Just whichever one ends up being the best, whether it's Charles Perkins, Corey Walker, or Parker Peterson, because like the interior of the defensive line was definitely the biggest position of need going into the portal. So the fact that they just hammered that makes me really happy, and that's why I'm excited about it. I don't know which of the guys turns out, as long as one, or if 2 of them turn out, that's awesome, honestly.